Hello, my name is Angela Waters, and welcome to N-Spi-One. Today our guest is N-Spi's very own host, Reverend William C. Harris. Welcome, Reverend Harris.
Thank you, Angela, and I appreciate you inviting me on the show today.
Oh, bless you. You are a very talented person. You're a motivational speaker, you're a businessman, and you're a minister. You have a lot going on. Will you share with us some significant things that may have happened in your childhood?
Well, because of the racial unrest, because of the economy, and there are a lot of unemployment in the African American community, there were a lot of just things going on that would create instability in the family. My family was one. In our time, during that time, men used to work hard, party hard, come home and beat their wives. Some of them did, not all of them, but enough of them did. It made a tremendous impact upon our communities. And growing up in a home where you saw this kind of activity, it had a significant impact upon us as children, more so than we actually knew ourselves until we became young adults. And watching my father beat my mom was one area that really impacted my life. Now, let me preface that by saying that, African American males was under a lot of stress themselves, and they were only responding to what they were taught by their fathers growing up. In my situation, my father didn't know who his father was, and I did not learn that until later on in life, which was one of the contributors to his domestic abuse.
Okay. That would have some impact on shaping your values as far as
value, personality, lifestyle, behavior, all of that had a significant impact upon myself, because as a child you grow up telling yourself, I don't want to be like my dad when I grow up, and in your heart you're angry, you're disappointed, you can even hate and be bitter towards your parent because of that kind of activity, and never realize that there's a seed sown that grows up as you get older.
Yes. What about your mother, your relationship with your mother?
Well, during those years, my relationship with my mother was great. I was very, very protective of my mother. My mother was a short woman. My dad, he tall guy, and muscular and all that kind of thing. And for the life of me, I could not figure out or understand why a male had to beat a female. Why couldn't they reason the things out through conversation? And I never really saw that happen. They always argued and they always fought.
Okay. You mentioned that you were called into the ministry at the age of 10.
At the age of 10 years old, I remember one night my father and mother was fighting in the other room, and being a young child, I cried. I cried myself to sleep, praying, wanting God to stop them and wanting God to come in and take care of business, and when I fell asleep, I had this vision. And this man came to me and gave me a book, which was the Holy Bible, and he told me to go and to preach his word. And in the vision, it was about 4 scenes. The first scene, he pointed down the path. I followed that path, and the first group of people I got to were some guys, shooting dice, and they call shooting crap. And the voice spoke to me and said, preach my word. And so rather than preaching Jesus, I was actually preaching the flood of Noah. And I was telling the people they needed to repent because there was a flood coming. And if they weren't ready, they would perish. And they didn't hear. And when they did not hear, the voice said, move on. And so I followed continually down that path. And the next group of people I got to were people that were in a club. They were partying, having a good time, this kind of thing. And the voice said to me, preach my word. And I preached the word to them, and they didn't hear. And I said to the person, they're not listening, they're not hearing. And he said, go on to the next, go on down the path. So I went on down the next path, and the next scene that came was a man and his wife, you know, and his family, and he was beating his wife and all that kind of thing. And again, the voice said, preach my word, and I preached the word, and they didn't hear. And when they didn't hear, the scene changed. And when the scene changed, it was like the rain began to fall, and the people began to cry out, you know, for access to the ark. And at that point, I was on the ark, and the water was coming down, and I saw the dead bodies, you know, in the water. And I remember the dream ending with me weeping for those souls that were perishing.
Wow, that's exciting. How did the church react to your call? Were they supportive?
Well, the first person I told the dream to was my mother, and my mother had an idea, you know, what it meant, but she took me and set me down with my pastor, and he explained to me what was going on. And being so young, he just invited me to come to church so that he can train me. And in the process of going to church day and night, and usually no one was at church at night but a bunch of old ladies, and I was the youngest, only person that was male there. Everybody else was female, and the pastor and my peers started to join me about, you know, being reverend and holy roller and all that kind of thing. And eventually I gave in to the peer pressure and went back. I stopped going to church and just started hanging out with my homies, so to speak.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your injury. Could you tell us what happened, you know, if you could put it into context with your childhood?
Well, growing up, you know, again, and watching your father beat your mom, you know, that anger began to mature. Hatred began to mature in me. I hated the fact that he would beat my mom the way he did, and there was one day my father came home and he beat my mother with a baseball bat. When I saw my mother, the only